to the main event. Welcome to WHW Monday. Tony Schiavone and Conrad Thompson.
Jim Crockett First Arcade, 605 NWA. TV title, Cajun Omni, the Bunkhouse Stampede. Flair and Horseman, Garvin, Bogey, Magnum, Dusty, Express Tag Team. Turner, Bodden, Mid-South Joint World Championship Wrestling.
Talking about the great years of World Championship Wrestling, the NWA, and Jim Crockett Promotions.
Tony and Friends North they win. Look, Schiavone's back again. World title split off, center stage, Bischoff. Disney, Hogan, and Nitro. New World Order and The Crow. Thunder, Russo, Arquette Champ, Vinnie Mac, simulcast. Tony's back with Conrad, not your classy podcast. Watch along, try not to laugh. Lois rules, cat back. This wasn't the initial plan. Tom Zigg's a good-looking man. Klondike Bill, make a chant. Tommy, you come over here.
What happened when? WHW Monday. And now, let's go to the ring. And here's your co-host. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson.
Welcome, everyone, to a very special edition of What Happened When. It's Tony Schiavone, and this is very special because I'm going to be talking to a girl who's become very famous thanks to our podcast. What are you going for?
Girl.
Or a female.
Woman.
A grown woman. And, of course, it is Lois Schiavone. Hey, sweetie.
Hey, darling.
Thanks for being with me.
I've been with you for 41 years. There's no quitting now.
Well, I didn't think you'd quit.
No, I
Well,
won't.
you know what? I'm going to talk about most of the fans who have read Butts and Seats kind of know our story, but there's more to our story than just in the comic book, because it's kind of a whirlwind romance. But I want to talk to you about being a wrestling wife, or a wife whose husband is in wrestling. And I know it's different than wrestlers, because back in the day, right, the wrestlers wrestled every day, and I didn't. I was gone on, some nights and then on the Saturdays. So just how you got along with that. But first of all, let me say this, and this is a good reason to do this. This is a very, very famous week, and as this podcast drops, it's going to drop early on Patreon, and thanks to our Patreon subscribers. But as it drops for everyone else, it drops on April 6, 2022.
It does.
Mm-hmm. Happy birthday to you, by the way.
Thank you, darling.
Yeah. And so this is Lois Rules at 70.
Oh, God.
How about that? 70 years old.
Can I cuss? No, my doctor told me that I'm a young 60s.
Is that what he said? She said?
She said, yes. Well, I said, I'm 69. She goes, you're a young 69. So if 40 was the new 30, and 50 was the new 40, and 60 was the new 50, then 70 has to be the new 60s.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, that's a good start.
Yeah, that is a good start. So she said you were a young 69. Did she mean health-wise, or what did she say? Was that just a little positive thing?
I don't know, but I'll take any compliment any way I can get it, and I felt like that was a compliment.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Well, you're a young 70 now.
No, I'm the new 60.
Oh, I'm sorry. She's the new 60.
Right.
Right.
I don't look like I'm 70, do I?
No, you don't act like you're 70 either. And I say
Fucking
that.
A.
I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah. No, you don't act like it either, and that's a good thing. I think in our marriage that we've tried to stay young, haven't we?
You have.
Well, yeah, I have.
Yeah. I haven't set it as a goal.
Okay.
It's like I don't want to be bogged down with what is it, like our moms and our dads, and they had this level of being that was like tradition. Yeah. And what their parents had passed on to them.
Right.
Real old school.
Right.
And I feel like, yeah, I can be old school as far as their traditions and things, but I also need to acknowledge the young people of today. and accept some of the changes that life brings. I don't want to get political here, and it's not the politics.
Okay.
I'm saying
thank God.
it's the young people. They have a voice where our generation and the ones before us didn't acknowledge the young people and what they have to say.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was
That's
different.
kind of heavy.
Yeah, it was. Well, yeah, I get it, and it's a different world.
Yeah,
that
it
we live
is.
in now than, I mean,
Yeah,
our
and we have
parents-
to adapt.
Yeah, your parents, your dad, and my dad both were in World War II. Mm-hmm. Your dad went on to be in the Korean War and made Army his career.
Right.
My dad your dad was in the infantry, and my dad was not. So my dad spent the time that he needed to spend in the Army, went over to Germany, and then came back, but your dad kept going.
Right.
So what I'm getting at is that it was a different lifestyle than you and I have had. Don't you think?
Yeah, you grew up basically an only child in Craigsville, Virginia.
Yay, Craigsville. Let's hear for Craigsville, Virginia.
Shout out.
Woo-hoo-doo.
And then I grew up as an Army brat, moving from pillar to post. I call it being a gypsy of the federal government.
Okay.
Because they moved you basically every 2 years. Right. And I think the longest we ever lived in any one place was Fort Knox.
Yeah.
Until I married you, that was the longest place I'd ever lived.
Okay. Well, so anyway, so we grew up in
Very different environments.
very different environments. I think we have had our struggles, but I want to say that, and I want to say that to as a husband and wife, we've had our struggles, but we haven't struggled like other people have had. Now, that's why I say I want to preface this by saying I realize there are families out there who've had their problems. We've had problems as a family, like all families have had, but we've been very fortunate throughout the years.
Yes, we have.
To be able to, first of all, raise 5 kids, to have 6 grandchildren, to have a house that we lived in for 31 years. So we've been very fortunate that.
Right.
In many ways. So I feel very fortunate on that level. All right, so we meet during a baseball season, or we meet in 1981 at a radio station in Greensboro. Just go through it quickly.
Yeah, that was last week's anniversary.
Right.
Because we met
The day the president was shot.
Right.
President Reagan.
Right.
Which was March 31st, 1981.
I think it was 30th.
30, whatever. It was one of those
Right.
days.
1981, right.
Okay, so we meet then. We whirlwind romance. I'm doing baseball. The very next year, I find out that the AA team is in Charlotte has an opening, and I go down to Charlotte, drive down to Charlotte from Greensboro. I was doing a single A baseball then. I drive down to Charlotte from Greensboro. Francis Crockett offers me the job at that time. Mm-hmm. You're pregnant with Matt.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved to Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
Little did we know this would change the complete dynamic of our lifestyle.
Yeah, I married a baseball announcer.
Yeah.
Let
Right.
me emphasize that for all of you people. I married a baseball announcer. I grew up with 3 brothers who were wrestling fans, and I hated wrestling. I swore, as God is my witness, I will never marry a wrestling fan. I found out after we were married that you were a wrestling fan.
Yeah, so that was her best Scarlett O'Hara impersonation right there.
Thank you.
As she retches in the garden.
Oh, you're so funny.
Okay.
Snort, snort.
Snort, snort, snort. When Lois starts to really laugh, she'll snort. So you'll be hearing a lot of snorting.
Maybe.
Okay.
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 So,
Keep on.
So anyway, so I get into wrestling, and we eventually leave baseball. And now I want to talk about our years in wrestling, because Laurie comes in 84, and that is my last year of baseball. 85, Chris comes.
Chris was born the season after the ballpark burned down.
Right.
Remember?
That's right.
But that was the crossover year
right.
for you and Jim Crockett Promotions.
Right. 87, the Twins come, and I'm already in the Jim Crockett Promotions.
Yeah. Do we need to give a shout out to Arn for his famous line for what he said when we found out we were pregnant with twins?
Yeah, Arn. I may have told this story before, but it's a story worth telling because Arn and I have been very close.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
And still are very close as friends. Probably not as close as I think we should be, and that's my fault, not his, because I'm not a good friend, which has been well established with all of my friends. I just don't keep up with people. I don't.
You're too busy, Tony. Just cut yourself some slack.
Okay, so anyway.
And keep on. Tell the story.
So anyway, we would do the interviews in the back, the local interviews at Jim Crockett Promotions in the back, and I would stand in front of the camera all day and just go back and forth between the heels and the baby faces. And out and on the other side of the camera were all the wrestlers, and Lois had gone to her gynecologist that day, and she walked in. And I'm thinking, what's going on as she walks in? And she's talking to Arn, and she's smiling. And Arn said, could I have a minute with everybody here?
In the way that Arn only can talk.
He said, I just want to let everybody know that our fat, dumpy announcer is going to have another baby. Don't you know what causes that? Would you please stop? And he walks back, and we were having another baby, but then we ended up having two. Mm-hmm. And so that was the last pregnancy. So, but we moved from Charlotte to Atlanta when actually we don't move from Charlotte. Let me back up. We moved from Charlotte to Connecticut in 1989 because I didn't want to work for Turner Broadcasting and Jim Hurd, and I got an offer from Vince McMahon to come work there. So we packed 5 young kids into, actually we put them on an airplane.
Yeah, and a dog and a cat.
And a dog and a cat on an airplane, and we go to Connecticut and live in Wilton, Connecticut, which was a house kind of remote. It had wooded area.
Yeah, they 2 acre
2 acre land.
Plot. Yeah.
A long driveway to get to it. Remember that?
Right. We lived near the School Sisters of Notre Dame. That's a retirement home for nuns, and they had a preschool, and Laurie and Chris went to preschool there.
Okay. And Matt was in like the kindergarten,
the
right?
elementary school.
The elementary school. Okay. All right. So it's been. And I talked about it in the comic book, but it's also been a stat. People have asked me, why did you only last a year? Now, let me tell you this story. I had sat down with Vince McMahon and told him, because I loved working there, I did. And I told him, I said, I'm in this for the long haul. And then I got a call from Jim Barnett. Can't remember when it was. It was probably 5 months later. And Jim Barnett, he said, I found your home number. Would you like to come back and work for you? We often said that we've made a mistake letting Tony Schiavone leave. If I knew what I knew now, I would have probably just said, go fuck yourself, and hung up on him. Not necessarily because of the job, but because
he was quite a character.
He was a piece of shit. So anyway.
Remember the dinner that we went out with him?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Went to somewhere in Buckhead.
Was it the Abbey?
No, it's not the Abbey. You and I had gone to the Abbey before.
Oh, okay.
But this was another one place.
Okay.
So anyway, went out to dinner. But anyway, he calls me. He said, "You want to come back?" So that's when you and I discussed it, and it was not an easy life in Connecticut.
No, it wasn't. It was difficult.
It was very expensive.
That wasn't it. We
rented a house. We couldn't afford to make house payments because I couldn't afford the down payment. The good news is, and this is why I always have a place in my heart for Linda McMahon, and I say that because there were like the first 2 months we hadn't sold the house yet, and she made the house payments for us in Charlotte.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she did.
My affection for Linda McMahon, not only because she was Republican running for a Senate job up there, but when your mom passed,
Right.
she sent a memorial for a mass to be
Said in my
said-
mom's name. Yeah.
Yeah, in your mom's name.
Yeah.
And this was after we had left there.
Yes.
Which, I thought she was a wonderful, caring individual.
Right.
She was approachable.
Right.
Vince, I thought wasn't.
Okay. So.
But that's me.
So anyway, we couldn't afford a house. We couldn't afford to buy a house. We had to rent, and it just didn't seem like it was a lifestyle for us. And I know I wrote down on a piece of paper on a legal pad the pros and the cons of moving and moving back, and so I made the jump to Atlanta. And
Do you want to know my feelings about it?
I do want to know you. 'cause
Okay.
this is
I felt like a fish out of water. I wasn't comfortable with that New England lifestyle. I felt like people up there were la-di-da. And in the South, people accepted it. I don't know. I was just glad to be back south of the Mason-Dixon because up there you wanted to buy people for what they were worth and sell them for what they thought they were worth.
Okay,
That was my philosophy.
That was your feeling. I mean,
But that's because I'm insecure.
right. Yeah, and I know. I think that's one of the reasons we get along. I think we both have our insecurities.
Yeah, it was nice, and it was nice going into the city. I don't know that I would ever have gone into New York City on a whim, like, just fly up to New York to do shopping. I know a lot of people did that from Greensboro that I knew, but that wasn't in something that I would do. But when we got up there, and it was just a 45-minute drive into New York, and we would go there to see plays and go to Broadway, go to dinner, meet up with some of your famous friends. But that was exciting. And to this day, I would still go to New York and go, wow, because it's more than just a city. It's an idea. But I was impressed with that. But when I got back home to that small little community, it was really
We were
snooty.
isolated. We were isolated. It wasn't that snooty. We were isolated.
I thought it was.
Well, you had more interaction with them than I had
Right.
because I worked in the office and I drove from Wilton into Stamford every day to work in the office.
Right.
Right.
I almost got in a car wreck in the parking lot at one of the supermarkets there, the Village Market, I think it was called.
Not Stu Leonard's.
Not Stu Leonard's, but with Tom, what was his name? Tom Canary was on All My Children or something.
Okay.
Did a brief stint with a Western or Bonanza or something. Anyway, and I thought, oh my God, I didn't know he lived in Wilton. But
You almost got into a fight with him?
no, not a fight, a car wreck.
With him?
Head on, almost, yeah.
Wow.
It was like, boom, stop. Oh my God.
And did you jump out and say, "Hey, I know you"? You
No,
Okay.
no.
You didn't do that?
No.
Okay.
Wasn't anything like that. I just kind of slumped down into my seat and thought, God, I hope he doesn't know who I am.
Was he good looking?
No, he was an old man. My
Oh,
God.
okay. All right.
No, you're the only man I ever looked at. But
Wow,
I mean,
is that a
other
bull-
than on TV screens,
Is that a bullshit fucking lie?
you're the only man I would ever consider.
Okay.
Anyway,
Holy shit.
But no, now Stu Leonard's was another.
Yeah, it was
that
another
was
one.
like going to the Disneyland
Right.
of food stores.
Yeah, people around there called it Zoo Leonard's. Okay.
Did they really?
Yeah, Zoo Leonard's.
Oh.
Okay.
Matt just loved it when we got to the eggs because the chickens clucked.
Yeah. Right.
And when you got to the milk, the cows mooed.
All right.
It's
Yeah.
an experience. If you ever get a chance to go to Stu Leonard's in Norwalk, Connecticut, go.
So we're talking about our time in Connecticut, and I really loved Linda. I love working with Vince. Bruce Pritchard was my boss. He's still my friend. Kevin Dunn and I got along, and people are going to. I know people in the wrestling business have a lot of bad things to say about those people, but I'm telling you, the way they treated me at that time, they were good to me, and it was a good year. And I really struggled about coming back to the South, but I knew it was the best place for us as a family. And of course, they offered me quite a bit more money to come back, than I was making up there. And so I thought, you know what, I can buy a house here in Atlanta, and I can make more money, and so it's going to be better for me. Little did I know when I came back how much it fucking sucked for me personally, because it was very difficult working here. But the family was happy. We had great schools around here. Timber Ridge, Dodgen as a middle school, Timber Ridge Elementary School, Dodgen Middle School. By the way, Dodgen also, a couple of famous people went to Dodgen as well. The guys from the Black Crows. The brothers, the Black Crows, went to Dodgen.
Really? I
Yes.
didn't know that.
And also the Disco Inferno went to Dodgen. But yes, but he fucking sucks. So anyway, that's another story. I went to
and then
Dodgen.
the Schiavone kids went there.
And then we went to-
and they're famous too in their own right.
Okay, and we went to Pope. The kids went to Pope. So we had great schools. And we settled in this house that we're still in right now because I just love this house and don't want to move. And you and I have discussed that, and that's something else. So, but it was great for me professionally. And when I'm asked many times, what is the most memorable match you've ever called? And I'm going to go back to Madison Square Garden. First time I walked in Madison Square Garden, Lord Alfred Hayes and I are doing the broadcast for MSG Network, and we're doing the whole card that day, including Hulk Hogan, Big Boss Man in a steel cage. Now, keep in mind that I had done things at the Omni, I had done things in Greensboro at the Coliseum, but mostly it was small, like Spartanburg and Green.
And this is when you were with WCW?
No, WWE.
WWE, yeah.
I had been on Jim Crockett Promotions payroll, a mom and pop's organization, and never experienced anything like Madison Square Garden. So that was big for me.
So was going to England
Yes.
and Brussels and going around with
Alfred. Yeah, we took a trip to, because I did Coliseum videos, Lord Alfred and I went to England, did the broadcast for Sky, and then which is one of my greatest trips of all time, he let me drive a car down to the cliffs of Dover, where we got on a jet foil, went across the channel, and landed at Ostend, and then drove to Brussels, or stayed in Ostend, drove to Belgium, or what is it, Brussels or Belgium? Brussels. The city's Brussels, the country's Belgium.
right, something like that.
Something like that. We stayed there.
All I got was a box of chocolates.
And then that's more. You got more than that when I got home, didn't you?
The chocolates were a souvenir. Okay, continue with your trip.
Hey now. So anyway, we drove to Paris and worked in France. Great trip with Lord Alfred. I got a lot of friends that I work with.
Mm-hmm. You also went to Japan.
That was with WCW. I went to Japan. We came back.
I thought you went there with WWE.
No, I did not.
Okay, all righty.
Well, anyway, but anyway, it was a difficult lifestyle. The kids were younger at that time. I mean, look, when we lived in Connecticut, Matt was
Second grade.
second grade, and so he was 6 years old. And so Laurie was 4, Chris was 2.
No. It was
So Matt was 7. It wasn't it 7, 6.
7, 5, 3,
Anyway, we had 5. We had
Five
five
kids,
7 and under.
5 and under
5 and under one time.
when they were born.
So how was it raising 5 kids? Don't think
Do
about
you know,
Don't
I
think
think
about it.
that-
Don't think about it now. Think about when they were younger.
I think that I've blocked a lot of that.
Wow, really?
No, it was hectic, especially when you were gone, because it was. I take them to school, take them to preschool, take them
Right.
to their doctor's appointments, back home, dinner, bed, haircuts, maybe even in the. I think we have pictures of Matt getting his haircut in the kitchen. But it was get him to bed, get him up the next morning, go through the whole routine again, da 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 da, and I just did it. It was like
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I would have been crazy if I had to sit down and think about this is what I've got to do.
Yeah, because
but I
you just
just
did
did
it.
it.
Right.
I just did it, and I did the best I could. Maybe.
Yeah. No, you were a good mom. You made cakes for them.
Oh, yeah.
We did not go out and buy cakes at a grocery store or a bakery. You actually made the cakes, designed them, and it
Yeah,
was
for
good.
whatever
Yeah.
figure that they were into at the time.
Right.
Like Thundercats.
Right.
That was one of Matt's.
Right.
Bugs Bunny was one of Matt's.
Right. So we moved back to Atlanta, and this time we do pack the kids up in the van and drive back.
Yeah, with 2 dogs now,
2 dogs.
a cat, and a tank of fish.
Okay. How about that? We packed up a tank of fish.
Yes, we did.
And drove back to drove to Atlanta. So
And the fish survived too.
right. So I remember that you stayed at the Omni for like a day or maybe and your mom came, and then you guys came here and started unpacking while I was working. But I do remember going to the Omni first hotel.
That's where we stayed the night before the next day we moved in. We moved in on Easter, I think. Because remember our realtor had Easter baskets for the kids on the counter?
Didn't we move in on your birthday? You know what?
We moved out on my birthday.
Okay, but I was looking at the deed. We signed on April 6th, which is your birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were,
we left
and you were 30 years old, or 31, 32 years old at that time.
No.
Or you were
No, because I had the twins when I was 35.
oh, you were 40 years old then, because it was 81. I mean, when was it? When did we move?
We moved here in 90.
90. Okay, what the fuck am I thinking?
I was 38.
Okay, so anyway, so you were a beautiful 38.
You cannot add.
I can add. Okay.
No, you can't.
I can multiply.
Oh, yeah.
So
4 times.
So anyway, it's been a good life here. I know there have been ups and downs, but how do you think my job has affected you and the kids' lifestyle or lives as I moved on with my job? Tough question, you think?
I don't know. I think the kids had a hard time with it. Matt, maybe not so much because he was the oldest and a boy. Laurie, I think she did. That
Tough time for me being away all this time?
Not just you being away, but you being Tony Schiavone, and everybody knew who you were. Mm-hmm. With the kids, it was like, and I think with her especially, it was difficult that they didn't know if, and I think Matt gave voice to this, that they didn't know if the kids, their so-called friends, liked them for who they were or who their dad was.
You think that...
And that was tough for them to discern.
You think that came in the high school era, though?
Yeah, more so. I know that in elementary school, it was more, oh, you're Tony Schiavone's wife. And that gave me pause because I wanted to, my identity was Lois and Matt, Laurie, Chris, John Michael, Timothy's mom.
Right.
I was their mom.
Right.
I wasn't Tony Schiavone's wife.
Right.
I thought I had an existence beyond being your wife.
Right. Right.
And that was difficult, especially for people with insecurities. And this household is full of them.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, like, everybody has their own things they have to go through in their mind and their lives. And there were certainly problems that we had as a family. But again, I look at it and think that we didn't have the problems other people had.
No, as far as you were a good provider, you are a good provider. That kind of thing, we were healthy. We had medical issues that came up with the kids that normal kids have. None so devastating. I think the worst thing that happened was John Michael burning his legs, tripping over the cord of a coffee urn at the elementary school. and the coffee spilled onto his legs, and he got second-degree burns to his legs.
Yeah.
That was the worst thing.
I remember going to the hospital, having to soak his legs and having them just
Debride
the skin, and him crying.
Yeah. I remember going there in an ambulance with him.
Yeah, right.
And
Remember
that was traumatic.
Remember Chris hitting his head on the commode? That was funny.
To this day,
Yeah.
it's the conversation that we have
Yeah.
about why did he hit his head
on the
a
commode.
porcelain commode.
Yeah.
But it took 12 stitches, 2 inside and 10 outside.
Yeah.
But you left, and I was stuck with watching them stitch his forehead.
Yeah. There's an old story here in the Schiavone household, and it's one that is voiced by Lois many times, is that anytime there was some sort of emergency, I was always out of town.
You were out of town when John Michael burned his legs. You were out of town with a lot of the other stitches.
Yeah.
But with Chris, you were in town. They got a hold of you before me. And you got to the hospital. I got to the hospital later.
Right.
And just as they were beginning, they had just numbed his forehead. And you said, well, I got to get back to work. And you left because you didn't like the sight of blood. And hospitals were not your forte. I guess I always felt like every time that we walked into Scottish Rite, that the bells, whistles blew because, oh my God, it's the Schiavones again.
Okay.
But when you have 5 kids, you're going to have all kinds of emergencies. And it went from everything from asthma attacks to stitches.
Yeah, right, because John Michael had asthma.
Remember when Matt threw a hairbrush at Laurie Beth?
Yes, during Christmas
New
Eve.
Year's Eve party.
Yeah, New Year's Eve party, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had to get stitches in her.
Dusty was here. I think Cody was here too, as a little kid, Cody and Teal.
I
Dusty
can't
and
remember.
Michelle were here.
Yeah, it
And
was.
Bill Watts was here, I believe, and his
Terry Taylor was here.
Terry Taylor was here. God, I had Terry Taylor in my house.
I think
Yeah, what
so,
the fuck
because
was
didn't
wrong
we
with me?
didn't we discuss that
kidding.
he went to the same college I did?
Yeah, I went to Guilford. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, I want to rewind back a little bit because I'm kind of going in chronological order. But you talked about me not liking hospitals. When Matt was born, I was in Savannah. Okay. When Matt was born. Okay, you go snort now.
Yes. Go ahead, tell the story.
When Matt was born in 1982, July of 1982, I was in Savannah, Georgia with the Charlotte baseball team. We were playing the Savannah Braves, and it just so happened it rained that night, and rained during the day and rained heavy. So I get on I call home, no cell phones back then. I was on a payphone at the hotel, and I said, "We've been rained out. I'm just checking." And you didn't pick up, but Lib picked up. Lib, by the way, Lib Schilt, who's no longer with us, she has passed away, but her son, Michael Schilt, was the manager of the St. Louis Cardinals, manager of the year a couple of years ago. So Lib was there, and I said, "Lib, what are you doing in the house?" She said, "I'm just visiting your wife." And so I said, "Well, can she talk?" You know, because I knew you were ready to drop at any time. And
I was past my due date.
You passed your due date. So you came to the phone, you were out of breath. And I said, "Are you okay?" You said, "Yeah, I just walk in here to get to the phone." And I said, "Okay." And Melva Ruby was there. And Melva got on the phone, and Melva said, "You rained out?" I went, "Yeah." She said,
Come home.
"I would think you may need to get home." So I knew you were in labor. So I got John Stafaro and Drungo Hayeswood and put them in the car with me, okay, and drove like a freaking bat out of hell from Savannah, Georgia to Charlotte, okay? And I mean, I drove over 100 miles an hour with them in the car.
You know, God has been with us through our whole marriage.
Yeah.
And it was a good thing that you didn't wreck the car because
Right.
you would have had a lawsuit
Right.
from Major League Baseball having those 2 players
That's right.
uninsured in your car.
Right. I was admonished, scolded after that by the Orioles because they said players cannot leave and be in a car. They have to travel by bus or whatever. So got to the hospital, middle of the night, got my scrubs on, walked in the room. Lois has her feet up in the air, legs up in the air, a fetal monitor in, and I just see her twat up in the air.
Oh.
Well, I did. That's the first thing and then a little blood from, and so you can describe me from there.
I was on oxygen.
Yeah.
Matt was on oxygen.
Okay.
I had a fetal monitor across my belly.
Okay.
He had a probe in his head.
Right.
Because that's all that was sticking out.
Right.
Or that they could see. Okay. I had IV. There were cords and lines going through me, Matt, everybody.
Okay.
It was
Okay.
Tony walks in and he sees me with all of these IVs and oxygen lines going everywhere, and he turns as green as the scrubs they put him in.
Yes. And Lois, being the way she is, she said, will someone get him to sit down because he's as green as the scrubs that he has right now, and he's getting ready to pass out, which I really was.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you're famous for that.
I never knew I was that squeamish until I had gotten the blood test for a marriage license and passed out from it. So anyway, so that's the story. Let's go back to now. We're in Atlanta, raising kids in Atlanta, and I'm going around and doing wrestling and everything, and
Coaching Little League.
and that's one thing that I'm very proud of. That, but regardless of all the travel that I did, I still was able to coach Little League for the boys because I made time to do that. Laurie played some softball, played some soccer, but mostly she kind of hung out with the boys at the ballpark. But I made time for it, and
The sisters of other players.
yes, I'm very, very happy that I made time for it. We're talking with Lois Schiavone. Lois Rules at 70. It's the name of this very special What Happened When podcast.
Oh, God. The day that will live in infamy.
Having a good time?
Yeah. Kind of chill.
Yeah, kind of reminiscing about our life together, which has been 41. We'll be 41 years this June together, and but when WCW went down in 2001,
Whoa.
that was pretty tough.
Yeah, we were in New York City to see Laurie sing at Carnegie Hall with
Right.
their chorus.
Right.
And we were, because I wasn't chaperoning that trip, I was just a mom
Right.
with her husband.
Right.
We were walking around Times Square, and it came across the ticker. Remember that?
Yeah.
The WCW was sold to,
Vince McMahon and WWE.
yeah.
At that time, WWF.
and that was like, boom.
Yeah, because we really didn't know. None of us knew exactly what was going to happen. WCW was going down the tubes. I knew that. I stressed over it. I looked for other jobs because I'm thinking, I just don't know. Brad, who was the head of our company at that time, kept telling me, "Hang in there, things will be okay," and he was lying to me. So it was a tough time to work for Turner Broadcasting back then. I don't know if you remember this. We had just been in. We walked in the WWF restaurant they had. Do you remember going in there? We walked in the
Vaguely.
WWF restaurant, and then when we walked out, which was in Times Square, that's when we saw the ticker. And I think,
Yeah, yeah.
this is amazing. So WCW goes down, basically bought by Vince McMahon. They bring us in to the offices and basically said, "This is your last day in the office. You're going to get a severance." We all met with an HR lady, and my severance was going to be very good. It was 18 months of severance, and it was full benefits, so we had a cushion. And I was making very good money at that time, so it was. And that same day, I had an interview with WSB and got hired by WSB that same day. And that was basically a part-time job at that time. So that started my career in radio, back in radio again. You told me
That was fun.
yeah, but you told me, and this was in the book, that you thought it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because you thought you said you were going to stay with WCW regardless, even though you were unhappy, and you were going to stay with it because the benefits were good and the money was good, and you just weren't going to let that go because of your commitment to your family. And you said this is the best thing that ever happened to you.
I think so. And why. I know it's been said, and I have emphasized it enough. I am not a wrestling fan.
Okay, well,
But I also know you were good at what you did. Whatever you do, you are good at it. But I think you really come out in radio.
well,
My dad always thought that your future was TV, and he said that. Unfortunately, he passed before he really got to see you on TV.
no, I did.
But
When did your dad die?
96.
My gosh, Lois, I've been on TV for 10 years.
Well, I guess so. Okay. So, yeah, he always thought that
years.
your forte was TV.
Yeah.
I always thought your forte was radio.
Okay, listen.
But the exposure that you got in radio, not only with the Braves, doing Braves baseball, and the people that you met with that organization, even though it was a little bit longer before you got back into baseball, you still had a good run with WSB.
Yeah, I
mean,
did.
they screwed you over, but
Yeah.
that's another story.
Well, we'll get to that, but yeah, it was good. But here's the deal: radio's a dying medium.
It is now.
It is. And I'm talking about terrestrial radio. I'm not talking about satellite radio because you and I listen to Sirius XM all the time.
Right. But back in
our day.
2000,
In 2001, it was
it was maybe
right.
beginning, but not so bad. It was still good.
right. So I go to work for WSB. I get hired full time 2 years later in 2003, and then WSB had the Braves contract. I started doing Atlanta Braves pregame and postgame show. I was one of 3 guys they rotated through. I got to go to the ballpark. I got to cover the Braves. I went on trips with the Braves. I don't know if you remember that or not. I went on trips with them with the Atlanta Braves. It was really good stuff.
Went to spring training.
Went to spring training.
Did the thing with Leo Mazzoni.
And that would come up later.
Yeah. You got to know Bobby Cox.
Got to know Bobby Cox, still know Bobby very well. I know his health has declined considerably, but I got to meet a lot of people and got to know very well John Smoltz. I mean, I know I'm name dropping here, and Tom Glavine, Chipper Jones, all those guys.
Got to cover the Masters.
Got to cover the Masters. I got to cover the NCAA Final Four. I got to NBA All-Star Game that came to Atlanta. Did a lot of things, a lot of sports things with WSB Radio that really enjoyed, really did.
And Georgia football.
And Georgia football.
And
Georgia,
basketball.
And basketball. Georgia football and basketball came a little bit later. I started covering the Georgia Bulldogs in 2003 when I started working full-time. You remember we went to the Sugar Bowl. Mm-hmm. You went with me.
Yeah, I had to learn all the stuff about the
Right.
traditions with Georgia
That's
football.
right. They were playing Florida State that year in the Sugar Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
They had won the SEC, but they didn't get to go to the BCS.
I sat next to Lauren. What's his last name? Lauren.
Smith?
Huh?
Not Lauren Smith.
The guy down that does the field interviews.
That's Lauren Smith. You sat next to him?
His wife.
Oh, his wife. Yes.
I sat next to his wife.
Right.
On the 50-yard line.
Right.
Couldn't see anything because our seats were so low and the players were so big.
Right.
Everything that was blocked by the people in front of us. So but it was still it was exciting. I'd never been to Nolans before. Bourbon Street.
So I work with. I remember how drunk you got the night before.
No, I don't remember.
No,
I do remember talking to the cops on Bourbon Street.
But I remember thinking, because you got so drunk. Remember we had a hurricane. You dropped it as we're walking.
No, I don't remember that.
Anyway,
I think he makes this stuff up, people. I really do. Yeah, he thinks that he can get me drunk and take advantage of me and my reputation and tell stories that just aren't true. That might be one of them.
all right. So anyway, 2003 started my work with the Georgia Bulldogs, and I wasn't getting paid for it, but I would go in the booth and I would help Larry Munson out, and I would do scores for him and do whatever running needed to be done. As we moved along, 2009, okay, I have been doing Georgia Bulldogs, and Scott Howard said, I want you to be my spotter. That was the same year that I got the job with the Gwinnett Braves doing their play-by-play.
Really?
Yeah, 2009 was the year.
Okay.
And that really helped. That really helped me financially with the Gwinnett Braves, with the Georgia Bulldogs, because I got extra money for that in 2009. It helped us financially a great deal. So now I was in the booth of the Georgia Bulldogs on an official capacity, and also I became the engineer for the basketball team, or the producer, as they say, producer, engineer for the basketball team. So I started traveling for football, and I was always traveling with football, but I started traveling with the team in basketball, doing all the basketball games. 30 basketball games a year, 12 football games, bowl games, championship, whatever. Got paid extra for that, and that was good. A couple of years later, after that, 2012, the Charles Youngs, who was the producer for the football team, decided he did not want to do it anymore. And so IMG approached me about doing the engineering for the football, and I did from 2013 until just recently the engineer for the football
2019.
To 2019, yeah.
Was your last
2020.
season? Yeah,
Actually,
okay.
yeah, it'd have been, the 2020 season was my last.
Right. 2019 was your last season with the...
With the baseball team.
Right.
So I did 11 years with the baseball team. Basically, about 13, 14 years all together with the Georgia Bulldogs. And it was pretty good.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it was good.
I like the people that I got to meet through your association with them. Coach Richt.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever met Larry Munson, but I have met Scott Howard.
Yeah.
And Eric Zier.
Right.
And of course their
Hondo.
And their other spotter is Chris Schiavone.
Chris now works as a spotter.
Yeah.
And I hope Chris gets a ring. I hope the entire radio crew gets a ring. Isn't it funny? If they do, then I left the year before you could get a ring. So,
but you've got rings from
baseball teams. I don't, it doesn't bother me. People ask, "Oh, you just missed getting a ring with the Georgia Bulldogs by 1 year," and I say, "You know what? It's no big deal to me. It really isn't."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that they won a championship is a big deal.
Right.
But I think you getting on with them and that first Sugar Bowl got me into the Georgia spirit.
Right.
Matt graduated from there. John Michael graduated from there.
Right.
Chris spent his weekends with friends that were students there.
Yep.
But we have a strong Georgia Bulldog connection, and I like that. I'm proud of that. And I
Yes, we got it. We've it was a good run.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Go Dogs.
And you know what? Tony Khan let me do it for a year or two, and he was going to let me continue to do it, but I just couldn't do both.
You were burning your candle at both ends.
It was just too much.
Yeah.
Because, listen, for those of you who don't know, being the producer of the football network for the Georgia Bulldogs is a very, very time-consuming and at times a very manual labor type job, lifting equipment and putting equipment and plugging things. I learned a lot about audio, learned a lot about it.
Yeah, it's made you who you are today.
Right.
As far as the go-to person for everybody's podcast, you're the one who sets them up.
Right. Well, yeah, and I'm proud of that. But also, I learned a lot about writing levels, and I learned a lot about hooking up audio equipment and making sure you're on the air and
getting in touch with all the electricians and the telephone people.
Right, yes.
And make sure you have the right plugs.
Right, wireless frequencies.
And bitch and moan and groan about the people that don't know what they're doing.
Yes, there's a lot of people. There's a number of people at the University of Georgia that don't have a fucking clue.
And other stadiums, too. What have you said about Mercedes-Benz Stadium?
Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, for those of you that don't know, may be a beautiful place if you're a fan to watch a game. But if you're running a radio broadcast, that stadium can kiss my fat ass. Okay?
And there's a lot of places that you've broadcast from that you've complained about. Yes. Not only the radio connections, line connections, but also positions of where you're broadcasting from. Remember Durham Bulls?
Oh yeah, the Durham Bulls. They put us up in.
You're down the third baseline or first baseline.
Yeah, they did. They listen. Here's what has happened in the radio world. Okay, they have continued, and I think they're going to be doing this at Sanford Stadium in Athens.
Oh dear.
They have continued now to put in new luxury boxes to make money for the boosters. It makes money for the school. And thus they have taken radio and the press and they've completely moved them down to where they don't give a shit about radio anymore. I don't care what anybody says. And this is one of the things that I'm kind of relieved I left the Georgia Bulldogs, because we continually, wherever we were on the road, got treated like shit. Mm-hmm. We did by the other schools. They didn't give a damn about us. Okay. And and here's a perfect example. My last bowl game I ever worked was the Peach Bowl, Georgia, Cincinnati. And that would have been in 2021. Okay, at the beginning of 2021. Of course, we're in the pandemic, right?
Right.
And when it comes to me doing a broadcast, don't fuck with me if I've got a job to do.
Especially since you know what you're doing.
Right. But I'm also very protective of it.
And you're meticulous.
Right. So we were setting up the day before. It was me and Chris setting up the day before. And the guy who was in charge came in and he said, "We'll let you guys know," you're talking this big, important voice, "that we can only have 4 in the booth. That's strict rule, 4 in the booth." And Chris looked at me. I didn't say anything. I said, "Okay, thanks." So, and immediately as he walked out, I looked at my son. I said, "Fuck him. Okay, we have 5 in the booth, sometimes 6. I'm not going to waver from that." So what I did was, the day of the broadcast, I locked the fucking door. Didn't let anybody in. Okay.
My husband.
And it's like, okay, if he wants to come, he can pound on the door if he wants to come, but I'm not fucking letting him in unless he goes and gets a key. Well, he didn't. The fucking chicken that he was, went to our sports information director, Claude Felton. Shout out to Claude Felton, one of the great guys in the world, probably the best sports information director has ever been. And he went to Claude Felton. He said, "Your radio team had more than 4 in there." Well,
no shit, Sherlock.
Yeah, well, shit, come tell me if you got balls enough to tell me. And Claude calls me. He said, "Did you have more than 4?" I said, "Absolutely. I had 5, maybe 6. He said, "You weren't supposed to." I said, "Well, Claude, the game is over now." Okay.
But who are you going to cut?
Yeah.
The engineer producer?
No, we're
they
not.
couldn't produce. Scott, Eric Zier,
Yeah,
Hondo,
you know what?
Chris.
Listen, you and I have different, and I'm not going to get into this. You and I have different feelings on the pandemic. I was willing to do whatever it takes to make it right, to be healthy. But another person in that fucking booth was not going to change the dynamic of the pandemic in the press box. We were in isolated booths. That's just them just trying to flex.
Sound important.
Muscle.
You have aged very well for
Thank
a
you.
man of your age.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you look a lot younger.
Right. Well,
I don't look like your mother.
Well, and I do color my beard. I do moisturize my face. And that's as far as we'll go. I don't color my hair.
We're not going to talk about your nails. Pedicures and manicures.
Well, that's, yes. Okay. We're talking with Lois Schiavone, and we are talking, this very special podcast is entitled Lois Rules at 70.
You could have come up with a better name.
Okay, just how about Lois Rules?
All right, Lois does rule.
How about that bitch I married?
You're not funny. You just look that way.
Okay. All right, so we have done a lot of crazy things, and we have gone through a lot of. I really think the toughest time that I've had as a professional and as was when WSB did not renew my contract, and that came at the end of 2015.
Yeah.
That was tough.
Actually, that was January of 2016.
No, it was December 2015.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was after Christmas.
Could have been. You're right. It was January 2016 because they brought me in and they said, "See ya," basically.
Yeah, and you were told that you would get a heads up.
Yeah, I was told I was going to get a heads up. they lied to me is what they did. They threw me out with no severance, no insurance. And so 2016 was our toughest year, I think, emotionally and financially.
you did a downward spiral. I was really worried about you.
Yeah. And the reason I did was in 2016 I'm 57. Okay.
I don't know. I can't do math in my head, but let me get my calculator.
And listen, no. And the reason I'm thinking that is that the reason I'm saying that is that I remember when they told me they weren't going to renew my contract. I was not very nice to those people. Okay. And I said,
and that's not you, because usually,
right.
I wouldn't call you a kiss ass, but I would say that you're usually very nice and accommodating to people, except to me.
Okay.
And you will call, as you see them,
Right.
to me. You will call
Right.
me a bitch to my face,
Right.
and
I'd-
et cetera. But other people, no.
Okay.
You may say it under your breath as you're walking away,
Yeah.
but never to their face. And that was what really surprised me about you, Tony,
Yeah.
because you're such a good person to people, strangers that you meet, old friends, new friends,
Fans.
I mean, you go out of your way to be nice to them. School teachers and their kids, whatever. It's you've always been pleasant. You've always been great with my family, even the ones that I don't like.
Okay.
But when you came home that day, I've never, and you told me what you said and what happened. I've never seen you so despondent, so angry, and so critical
Yeah.
of the way you were treated.
Well-
And it was justified.
Yeah,
Believe me, it was justified.
Because I really put a lot of effort in my job, as I do most all the other jobs, and because I was lied to on one thing, and I was really not a good person in that thing, and I thought, and this was the crux of everything. I thought at age 57 there was no way I'd get another job. Okay.
Oh, I've always had faith that if anybody could pull a rabbit out of a hat, it would be you.
Yeah, and that's
You have always landed on your feet. But I do remember how hard you took that.
Right.
That was a hard fall for you.
Right.
You've had other falls, but this one was devastating, and that one hurt me.
Yeah.
To see you that way.
Well, that's why to this day, I won, with the exception of maybe one person, which is Charles Kinney. We both know Charles. We love him. The chief engineer for not only WSB, for Cox Radio.
Well, he did a lot for the baseball.
Yes, he did. Charles Kinney is a longtime friend. Okay.
And he's from Kansas.
Right. I will not have anything to do with anybody from WSB Radio. I have.
And that's really sad,
Yeah.
because you made a name for yourself in Atlanta, working for them, and for them to treat you the way they did was despicable.
Yeah. So that was a tough year. So I started working for, in 2016, Starbucks. Also started working for 92.9 The Game.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed working for 92.9 The Game, and really enjoyed Starbucks.
You
I
had
did.
fun. I know you had fun with 92.9 The Game, but I also know that you enjoyed Starbucks because the ladies would fall at your feet and
right.
kiss the ground you walked on.
well.
They thought you were all that and a bag of chips.
Well, it was a lot of fun. And I started working there because I needed the insurance, and
But
anyway,
they never gave you enough time to
collect the
do
insurance,
that.
right?
But one thing, the good thing that came out of it,
Yep.
you became a better tipper.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. That's right.
Because you used to be a Scrooge,
I was a terrible tipper,
terrible tipper.
especially even back when I made some money. I was a terrible tipper, but I remember this one time because we shared the tips. And here's my story: this one girl, when she got her tip money that Thursday, she looked at it and she said, "My God, it's a tank of gas for the weekend." And she was so excited. She was genuinely excited. And I remember thinking at that time, you know what? These kids depend on these tips. This is good money for them. And they may not get paid much, but the tips help them out. So now I'm an over tipper.
Yeah.
Because of that experience at
Thank God.
Starbucks.
you can tell people the way they tip that they've had experience in food service by the way they tip.
Right.
And that explains your kids
Right.
because they've all done it.
Right.
I think, except maybe Laurie.
Right.
But, and I did food service. And that's why I caught all kinds of flack from you. Remember the Chinese restaurant in Stanton we went out to eat? And the service was lousy and you weren't going to leave a tip and blah, blah, blah. And you got mad at me because I did. Because it's not the server's fault
Okay.
when something comes out of the kitchen wrong.
All right. I've got to interrupt right now.
All right, go ahead. You're going
Okay.
to tell another story on me, aren't you?
No, yes, I am.
Okay.
Here's the story that I'm going to tell. This is not on video. Okay, this is audio only. But if you guys could see what I'm looking at right now, Lois is laying back in a lounge chair, not holding the microphone. Her microphone is between her boobs. It's between her boobs with the microphone up in her chin. That's tremendous. I just wish I could have a picture of that right now.
Why?
Well, it's kind of arousing. Anyway.
God. Reminds me of the dentist. Remember the dentist for my first root canal?
Did he stick something between your boobs?
No. I said, I'd much rather give birth than have dental work done. He says, well, let me know what you want and I can adjust the chair.
That's an old dentist joke. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, he stole that one. All right, so anyway.
He was quite a character.
Yes.
That was in Charlotte.
Okay, yeah, yes, Dr. Floyd.
Was that his name? I couldn't
Yes.
remember his name,
Yes,
but yeah.
he was a good dentist. So anyway, 2016 was tough. Got the kids together. This is in the book. Got the kids together. Talked about having to sell the house, and we had to sell the house. Actually, in 2016, I borrowed money from the kids.
You did?
Yeah, borrowed money from Chris, and not much, but just to make it.
Is that when they moved in with us? Was that 2016?
No,
I can't remember.
It was before then. They moved
Yeah,
in with us.
okay. I can't remember years. They've gone by so fast.
So that was a tough year, and then of course, at the beginning of 2016, Christmas of 2016, Laurie got engaged to be married, and I told her, please just delay the wedding until I can get some money together. And then in 2017 is when Conrad came into my life, and we started this podcast.
Well, the thing about it that she also had to schedule her wedding to any other time between, except for football season.
Football and baseball.
And the venue that she picked
Yes.
was either a March wedding or an October.
Right.
And so they had to wait another year
Right.
for the March thing because football season.
Yeah, let me be clear. I lost the job at WSB, but I still had the Georgia Bulldogs because I was getting paid by IMG, not WSB, and I still had the Gwinnett Braves because I was working for the Atlanta Braves at that time. I was getting cut a paycheck for the Atlanta Braves. So it's not like when I lost the job at WSB, I had no money coming in.
Right.
I had a lot less money coming in. That was the source of most of my money. So we had to work it around a time where I was not doing football and I was not doing baseball. Football stopped at the bowl games in January. Baseball picked up in April. So but I still needed a year to get things together.
Right.
And that's where Conrad came into my life. And to be honest with you, that's why I'm going to be indebted to Conrad for the rest of my life, because Conrad and this podcast enabled us to pay for a wedding and a reception. And the reason it is that there's money shared in this podcast world that we do, okay? Conrad did not take any money for this podcast at all while we were trying to gather money for a wedding. So that's why I'm always indebted to him for that.
Remember when you got the letter from him?
Yeah, because I was sitting right there in the kitchen, and I looked at him thinking, I don't want to do it.
This is crazy.
This
There's
is crazy.
fans just offering you money just to come and hang out for a day. That letter.
That letter, yeah.
Yeah,
But
that was kind of weird.
Yeah, I was talking about the letter to try to do a podcast, and I thought I didn't want to do it, and you thought, well, we're doing We got a wedding we got to pay
For somebody who can talk for a living, you do it very well,
Yep.
regardless of the medium
Yeah.
and regardless of what it's about.
Right. So,
He even talks at church, and they love him there.
yeah, I even talk at church. And then I'll come back and do a podcast and motherfuck everybody.
Yeah, well, I don't tell people to listen to your podcast because of the language.
Do you know that there was one, because, crazy things go through my brain. I guess you know that. Okay. You know how just weird shit will go through my brain.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a time I was sitting in church and I was I was getting ready to go up and speak. Now, I would go up and be the lector. I'm not going to even say the church's name, okay? But I'd go up to be the lector, and the lector number 3 welcomes people to Mass and also does the prayer of the faithful later. So as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, I wonder if I just said, "Hey, motherfuckers, welcome to church."
God.
I just wonder how that would play.
I think
It wouldn't play, obviously.
no, I think you'd be struck by lightning,
Yeah.
and there would be thunder and clouds of rain, and the voice of God would say, "Tony Schiavone."
She says with a microphone stuck between her boobs, which is great. So
Maybe I better hold it.
that's what she said. Okay, so so anyway, that brings us to our current state, and with the podcast and with AEW and how much.
You haven't really gotten into starting with AEW.
No, that was a very weird day. Starting with AEW, I was at Laurie's. You and I were at Laurie's, and we're sitting there, and I get a text from Bruce Pritchard. Bruce had told me months before that when after he'd got the job, he said, "If once I get my feet wet, maybe I can find something for you here. Maybe there's something." And Bruce texted me that day and said, "Hey, you want to talk?" And I went, "Yeah." And I called him. Stepped outside, and we talked. He said, Vince wants you to come to work here. Doing what? He said, well, there's a lot of things you can do. They were very unclear about it. And I turned around and called Conrad Thompson. Even before I told you, I called Conrad. And then a few minutes later, I got a text from Cody. Cody said, I don't want you to go to work for the WWE. I want you to come to work for me. And that started the ball rolling with getting in touch with Tony Khan. And Tony and I talked on the phone for an hour.
And what did your wife say about this?
Okay. So I went to my wife and I said, oddly enough, and I never thought this would happen in my life again, as you know, because go ahead and say it, I'm a pessimistic person, right?
Very, very glass half empty.
Right. I don't expect good things to happen to me. I expect bad things to happen to me. I'm sorry. That came from Rebecca Schiavone, my mother, who grew up during the Depression, who had 2 husbands die on her. She always thought the worst was going to happen. And that's where I grew up. Okay, I grew up in that very pessimistic, very
Chicken Little, the sky's falling.
atmosphere. Well, I digress. So, what was I talking about?
Bruce Pritchard.
Bruce Pritchard, and had called me and got the ball rolling there. And now I didn't have an offer from either one, but
you told your wife.
I told my wife, I said, it looks like I can either get a job with the WWE or I can get a job with AEW and Tony Khan, which is a new startup company. And my wife said,
I said, don't you dare go with the WWE.
you'll divorce me. Yeah, you hit me with that.
I think
Well, you've hit me
that
with-
goes back to baseball.
Well, that hits. You've always threatened to
No,
divorce
I
me.
haven't threatened to
Yes,
divorce you.
you have,
I'd kill you if you went back to WWE because they strung you along before.
Okay,
they had a bad taste in their mouth when
Okay.
you moved down here to Atlanta,
Okay.
and I don't think he's ever forgiven you from that. And then after they bought WCW, they they said, well, maybe we'll have something for you. They strung you around there. I don't trust them.
Let me go back and tell you that story. When they bought WCW, okay, and even I had this part-time job with WSB, and I had an 18-month severance. Listen, true story, the same day that WCW went down, you called me and told me that the 3 youngest kids needed braces that same day.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm thinking,
I don't remember
wow.
that.
Okay, so anyway, so I really wanted to get on with WWE. I did, because I wanted to keep that income up. And
That's like selling your soul to the devil, though.
okay, but still, let me get on with the story.
Okay.
That I tried to call Vince to no avail. I tried to call Kevin Dunn. I think I tried to call Kevin Dunn every week, but he never returned my call. Even, you don't remember this, I even drove to Fayetteville, North Carolina when they had a TV taping.
I do remember
to try
that.
to talk to them, and they were nice to me, but nothing. And I remember Kevin Dunn says, "I'll call you this week." I said, "Okay."
Never did.
Never called me back.
Yeah.
So there was a time too, I think it was when I lost a job at WSB Radio, that I had
Reached out to them.
I reached out to them, and Kevin Dunn called me here at the house, and he said, "Yeah, I'm going to call you. I was told to call you because I know you had an interest, but we don't have any openings for announcers." And I went, "Kevin, that's not what I called about." And I said, "You know that. I called about being a producer, working behind the scenes. I don't care about announcing anymore." He said, "Okay." This is what he said. "Okay, then we'll check into it and we'll call you back." Of course,
They
Kevin Dunn
never
called
call
me back.
you back.
So anyway, so you were, now we fast forward now to where we're
Yeah.
talking about, you didn't want me to go to the WWE because of the
I
way
had
they
a very bad feeling
strung
about
me
that.
along, okay?
Yeah.
But, so I go down and talk to Tony Khan. I knew immediately I wanted to work for Tony.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony told me, if they offer you more money than I'm offering you, I'd take it, is what Tony said. And I said, okay. So,
And what did Lois say about you working with Tony Khan and Cody Runnels?
and the Young Bucks and those guys.
No, what did I say about you working with Cody Rhodes?
What's that?
Because you were such a good friend with Dusty, and
Yeah.
Dusty was such a good friend to us
Mm-hmm.
that
That's the way.
that's family.
Yeah.
Cody was family.
Yeah, right. So anyway, and then I got strung along by the WWE. I mean, I
Exactly.
would try to get back with them, let them know, what do you want me to do? What are you offering me? I know what I told them I wanted, and I told them that number. It could have scared them away. I thought, my wife don't want me to go there, so I'm gonna give them this big number and see if they balk on it. And basically, they got back to me and said, we're sorry, we have nothing for you. Thank you for applying. And I told the lady in HR who contacted me, sweetie, you reached out to me. I didn't call you. It's like,
What the fuck?
what the fuck? So anyway, so here we are now 3 years into a contract, basically, with AEW. And living our best life ever, aren't we? Don't you think?
Well, you are. You're.
Well, what about you?
You're always gone.
Don't you enjoy what we're doing? I mean, we live in the same house.
Yeah.
All the kids are out. We got two of the
Thank
greatest little
God.
dogs in the world.
Yeah,
okay?
and
we have
we're
sex
making up.
We have sex on a regular basis.
Don't lie to people, Tony. That's not you.
Okay, go ahead.
You don't like to be lied to, so don't lie to them.
Okay.
We do not have sex on a regular basis.
Okay.
Tony thinks about it on a regular basis, but he refuses to with the senior citizen. So he screwed himself on that score.
You know what the T-shirt says, don't you?
What?
Old pussy's better than no pussy.
I've never seen that T-shirt.
Okay, I gotta show.
Forget it.
Okay.
Forget about it.
All right.
But yeah, we're catching up with our home improvements because we let a lot of things slide.
And we got a little bit of money to do that with now.
Yeah.
That we didn't have.
And we're doing things. Last June, we did a 2-week road tour.
Right, because we
we packed up the dogs and we drove to Jacksonville. You did your little thing there in Jacksonville.
Did my little thing there.
Yeah,
We did television in Jacksonville, Lois.
Right. Well, that's what you do.
It's not a little thing.
No, it's not for
Okay.
you, but to me, it's what you do. We did that,
Okay.
and I stayed there, and I don't walk very well, so
Right,
walking
yeah.
along the beach was rather difficult.
You got bad knees,
Yeah, I do have bad knees.
which means blowjobs out of the question. But go ahead.
It
I'm sorry.
means that, I'm probably looking at replacement, but that's another story.
Okay.
And I don't want to get into all the.
And we drove up to Baltimore because I was
Well,
there
we
for
stopped in Wilmington, and saw my
your
niece.
family.
Yeah.
Went to Baltimore and I did the show with Jeff Jarrett and Conrad.
Yeah,
at
and we
Jimmy's Famous
ate
Seafood.
at Jimmy's Famous. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, best place in the world.
Oh, yes,
And then we
it
drove
is.
down the valley and we spent some time with my friends there and my sister.
Yeah.
A little bit. And so we had a good trip.
And my
But-
friends,
yeah, you and your friends. So
high school.
We had a good time and
And then came home, and it was 2 weeks of just the two of us.
Yeah.
Stopped in, where did we stop in Virginia? Remember, it was
Yeah.
raining in Ashland, and it was raining along 95. That's when
yeah.
the snowstorm stopped everybody last year.
we also went to Hanover County for the tomatoes. Remember?
Right. That was in Ashland.
So that's a kind of two old people in a car driving with their dogs. I'm going. Look at this. Hey, I'm going to drive 55 miles if I can.
No, he does. Tony does not drive 55 miles an hour.
I'll get in a car every time, and what's the first thing you say? Don't kill me.
He drives like a New York cabbie. Yeah, he's hell on wheels.
Yeah. So
That man of mine.
well, anyway. So here we are now.
The
in-
life of Riley.
In 2022, getting ready to celebrate 41 years of marriage, getting ready to celebrate your 70th birthday, and
And Tony's gone half the time, and when he does come home, we binge watch Netflix.
and that's one thing
Shows.
isn't that something that
Yeah.
I completely do not watch sports at all anymore. I never thought I would be. Sports
And
is always
I don't watch network TV,
well. Okay, that's fine, but sports was my life, right?
right?
I'm complete. I mean,
We did not watch the Super Bowl.
We did not watch Super Bowl. We did not watch the Final Four. We did
Thank
not.
God I hate basketball.
Okay, I know, but we did watch the final couple of outs to the World Series because of Brian Snitker.
Yes, the last two innings.
Right, last two innings, and we didn't watch the national championship game.
We watched the last of it, didn't we?
The national championship game? No,
No, I watched the middle of it or something.
I didn't watch any of it because, and I was working for the Georgia Bulldogs. I've completely cold turkeyed it, and that's kind of the way I do. When I walk away from something, I don't look back. I try not to look back.
Well, I keep looking back.
Yeah,
I'm going to turn to salt one day.
But we watched the last couple of innings because Brian Snitker's a friend of ours and a good man.
Yes,
And
he
it
is.
was so good of seeing that. So,
Yeah, that was the best. He's a good man.
So
And he's a fan.
yes, of course he is. And he gave me Chris gave me a great Christmas present, a Brian Snitker worn jersey from the World Series, signed by him.
And what did he say on it?
He said from your favorite slapdick, Brian Snitker. So
Yeah. And wasn't that slapdick term coined with What Happened When? You and
Yeah.
Conrad coined?
Right.
Yeah.
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 For those of you who want to know where the slapdick term came, a longtime coach for the Georgia Bulldogs basketball team was Jim Herrick. He was also the coach of UCLA, very famous basketball coach. Unfortunately, left the University of Georgia under terrible terms, but he was in the radio station one day, and we asked him, Coach Herrick, that's your end. You want to take a few phone calls from the fans? We're getting ready to do a talk show. He said, I don't want to talk to them slapdicks. And I just freaking fell out. So when he said that. So that's where the term came from. And of course, that's what we use here on What Happened When. So here we are, 31st year into the house, and coming up this week, and 2 dogs, 6 grandchildren, 5 kids. Matt working for Fox News in New York City, has a daughter, lives in New Jersey. Chris has 3 kids, lives in Woodstock, has a very good job in software sales, and they are actually down the Florida Keys right now. Laurie has 2 young kids, one and another one 2, lives in Woodstock, works for me part-time and has another job. And let's see, the twins, Tim brews beer for the Wrecking Bar.
He just got that job.
With the
He
Wrecking Bar.
started out, when he first started brewing beer, he and Neil worked at the Wrecking Bar
Right.
as helpers.
Right.
And Neil went on to become the master brewer there. But Tim went around from one place to another and gained quite a reputation as a brewer of note.
He basically learned to brew beer under the deck here at the house.
Yeah, he and Neil both started by brewing beer underneath
So
the
if
deck.
you're in the Atlanta area and you go to the Wrecking Bar, which is at Little 5 Points, which is kind of the avant-garde part of Atlanta.
It's a hippie place.
The hippie place, okay? You go to the Wrecking Bar, Tim Schiavone is the master brewer there. Yeah. we're
10
very
years
proud of
later. Yeah, I think, good things have happened to him since he's
it. And John
started
Michael
doing
works for, at last we checked, Nordstrom's in Seattle.
Right.
So that's our family. And we've got 6 grandkids. We've got 2 dogs.
You said that.
And
You're
I did?
repeating
Okay.
yourself.
Okay.
You're getting old.
I am. But I just want to let everybody know who subscribes on Patreon. Everyone know who's been with us, who are fans. I appreciate everyone. It's been a great life.
Yeah. You know what's really funny? You called this the Lois Rules interview
Right.
or podcast.
Right.
And we've done nothing but talk about you.
Okay.
That's okay.
No.
You're the best thing that ever happened to me.
Well, honey, that's tremendous.
Yeah, because I told my mom that Christmas before I met you.
Yeah.
I said, there's nobody out there. They're either married or they're gay or they're duds.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Cash in my insurance policy. I'm never going to get married. I was going to be an old maid.
Right.
And then I met you.
And remember that time we had sex 5 times one day?
No.
Okay, so anyway, that's
never
another story. So for people that don't know about you, okay, you went to tell us your story. Basically,
I was born in Atchison, Kansas.
born in Atchison, Kansas, was
and lived all over the country
Army brat.
as an Army brat.
Catalog some of the places you can remember you lived in.
Okay. Well, I could go right down the line.
Go down the line.
Was born in Atchison, Kansas. We moved to Salt Lake City, Utah, Boise, Idaho, Richmond, Virginia, Berlin, Germany, Fort Sam Houston, Texas, Fort Smith, Arkansas, back to Atchison while Daddy went back to Korea, and then he came back after a year. We moved to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and we lived there for 4 years. And then in 1964, we moved to Pittsburgh. We lived on a Nike site base in the suburbs, and Daddy taught ROTC at the University of Pittsburgh, and that was his last duty assignment. He retired in 66. We moved to Thomasbrook, Virginia, and lived there for 2 years, and then we moved to Waynesboro. Daddy taught school at Macedon Military Academy. Then we moved to Waynesboro. He taught at Fishburne Military Academy.
By the way,
where Vince McMahon
Where Vince
went.
McMahon went, that's right.
Yeah.
What
But
do
that
you-
was, he was there before Daddy was.
Right.
So, and then I graduated from Waynesboro High School. And we
Oddly
moved,
enough, Waynesboro and my high school, Buffalo Gap, 30 miles apart. Mm-hmm. Right.
never knew you.
Never knew each other. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Then after I graduated, that summer we moved to Greensboro, and I went back to Madison College for a year and a half
Okay.
in Harrisonburg. And then I dropped out and moved back home
What'd
for
you
a
drop
semester.
out for?
Well, for one thing, they took away my in-state status as a student because I was accepted there as an in-state student. And because we had moved to Greensboro, they took that status away from me. And then the next semester, they took away my state teacher scholarship because we no longer lived in the state of Virginia. Yeah.
All right.
So, and things were rough. I had a bad experience with roommates anyway. So I dropped out, worked at the hospital for 5-6 months. My doctor, I had an ear infection or something, middle ear infection. He told me that I had situational depression and to get my ass back in college.
Good.
So I did. I transferred to Appalachian. I went there for 2 years. I did summer school at Carolina.
That's Appalachian State University in Boone.
Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina.
Okay. All right.
And I worked at the radio station there as a radio disc jockey and public affairs director.
Okay.
Graduated from there with a BAS in speech broadcasting, speech with a concentration in broadcasting, minor in political science. And then I moved back home, couldn't find work. This was 1974.
Before most of the people listening to us were born. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's when the gas prices
that was the gas
skyrocket.
Right.
Yeah.
That was Jimmy Carter era. Right?
Yeah, that was the Jimmy Carter era. I worked for the Greensboro Police Department as in communications before they called them 911 dispatch.
Right.
And then, let's see, I went back to school because the law enforcement got in my blood, and I got a degree from Guilford College in Administration of Justice. And I worked for, the clerk of Superior Court. I worked for an attorney. I worked for the Department of Corrections, North Carolina State Department of Corrections. And then I decided to get my master's and went to UNCG with a double major. I quit after a year, but that's another story that's really depressing.
Okay.
But I was a dorm mom at UNCG. That was fun. So, jack of all trades, master of none. I've done a lot of different jobs.
You've got 2 degrees, right?
I have 2 degrees.
What are they?
BAS and Bachelor of Administrative Sciences, and that is
In? What was the field, Lois?
I'm trying to think which degree went with Administration of Justice.
Okay, Administration of Justice. Okay.
And then a BS in, or is it a BA?
It's a BS. I don't know. BS or B. Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Arts, one of the two.
Well, the one that requires the language.
Okay, that's arts.
Okay, so Bachelor of Arts in Speech, Broadcasting, minor in Political Science. So you and let's see,
a double major
and a year of
on your master's.
in a master's level. But after 5 years, that you lose it, so you have to start all over anyway.
So you were, when I met you, not only absolutely gorgeous, and you still are, but
Thank you, honey.
You're welcome. But you were the smartest person I'd ever met in my life.
Yeah. But you also told the kids when they had to do that career stuff in middle school that they had to go and interview family members and who they were and write down the highest level of education they got. And you told the kids that that their mother was the most overeducated person for their job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 7 years of
So when Lois and I were dating before we got married, or I think after we got married, you got a chance to work to be a policeman, right?
Right. That was what I wanted to do, was to be a cop. And I had applied for several different agencies. One was in Burlington. When I applied for that one, you have to pass a physical exam.
Yeah.
And when I did it, I was the first woman that had ever passed the straight arm chin up on the first try. Yeah.
Boobs must have been a lot smaller than they are now.
That was before babies, so yes,
Okay.
definitely.
All right.
But I didn't get that job. I didn't get it with Winston, and I had tried with Greensboro, and I got a letter right after we were married that wanted to know if I wanted them to consider me or consider my application that they were starting another.
And I put the kibosh on that, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
That's something I really regret.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Well, Tony, if I had started in that class, we moved to Charlotte
Yeah.
6 months later.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
and I got pregnant with Matt, so
yeah,
it was.
I get it. Yeah,
I look at it this way. My whole life, I mean, and I don't want to get all religious and testimonies here, but it has been when one door closes, a window opens.
Right.
And it's like I look back on my life and I have seen that I have been in the places that I was supposed to be. Yes, it was a good experience and I learned a lot about law enforcement and criminal justice. I learned a lot about police work and the corrections and working for an attorney's, working in the clerk's office. Yeah, I worked in judicial hospitalization doing involuntary court commitments for the mentally ill and inebriates. Wow. So, yeah, the joke was it takes one to know one. Yeah. So they put me in that office.
Right.
So, but yeah, I've had some great experiences that have been made my life more interesting in a sense, but it's also given me a foundation to teach the kids, you know, and to guide them. But I've also said that the best education I ever got was being a mother. I learned more from my kids than I ever did in 7 years of post-high school.
Right. Yeah, well, it went by fast. I also, a couple of things that I need to say about you, and I've said this before. One time you said to me that you were in tears and you said that you thought that I left baseball, what I love, to do wrestling only because that I needed the money to support a family. And you said if it wasn't for me, marrying me, you probably would still be doing baseball now. And the answer to that was, I told you, no, I loved wrestling. And I would have taken that wrestling job regardless I had a family or not, because I loved it. And so
I don't remember that as much as I remember about you saying to me, if it weren't for you, I would have gone back home.
Well, it was when we first met, the people that worked for the radio station Greensboro were not kind to us.
Not to me.
Not
they
to you.
Were to you.
Because I met you at the radio station. And they were not kind to you, and I was pissed off about them, and I was mad at them. And I thought, you know what? I'll just drive back home and say, fuck it, and not even do this again. So, but I'm glad I stayed the course. And you said the one thing that you've always done, you've never been the type of wife that worries about where the next paycheck's going to come from. Never. There are some people, the husbands have lost their job, and now they're worrying about their lifestyle. They're worrying about this and that. You've never pressured me to get a job. And
I never had to, Tony, because I knew that your work ethic and your talent is so remarkable that, yeah, you could fall, but you'd get back up again, and it wasn't going to be the end. Right. You have that work ethic and you have that talent that I didn't have to worry about that. Yeah. I remember how despondent you were with WSB, and I remember when the manager of the Braves franchise in Richmond called you.
Yeah, Bruce Baldwin.
Yes, and you were talking to him, and at the time you were doing radio in
with WSB
in Gainesville, but no, But
I also did Gainesville, Georgia high school football.
Right.
And
And he asked you if you knew of a station
that could
carry, because they were moving to Gwinnett.
And I said yes. And then he said, well, we're talking to the station in Gainesville, AM 550, WDUN. And I said, well, I do sports for them. And he said, you want to be my announcer? And that's how I got the job with Gwinnett. Just kind of one of those.
See, it's like, and it's like God has put you in the right place with the right people at every turn. So even when something bad happened, like losing WSB, you always landed on your feet.
Yeah.
I've never had to worry about that. Plus, I'm not one of those that keeps up with the Joneses.
Right.
You know, I might live in East Cobb, but my house is not a museum. It's a home.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, anyway, I just want to let you know I appreciate that. It's always meant a lot to me. You've never put pressure on me, and you've always had confidence in me, and I love you for that.
Well, I love you because you're Tony fucking Schiavone.
Yeah. So we're going. So now that
I'm not going to get mushy on you because you're going to make me cry.
Okay.
And I promise, anytime that I get in any situation, I'm not going to cry.
yeah, and you're crying now.
I got tears in my eyes.
know.
Yes, because you said that.
So
But
now that I've put you over for an hour and a half, can we have sex tonight?
you want a blowjob?
Jesus Christ. Mother of 5, grandmother of 6. Stop it.
Is this over? Because I got to pee.
And listen, I just want to know, because I just do, I've been very fortunate, and I appreciate everyone who follows us on Patreon, everyone who listens to What Happened When. I'm living the best life ever now, thanks to AEW and thanks to the fans. Thanks to all of you out there who listen and have sent the letters in and want me to sign the cards and all of that. And
Yeah, if we didn't get cards and letters from your fans, all we'd get is junk mail.
well, we do not want you to send them to our house. We want you to send them to our mailbox. And I've put that on before, so you can find that in the archives. All right, sweetheart.
Is that it?
Yeah, we've been.
Are we through yet?
No. You got to pee?
Eventually, yes.
She snorted. Snort again for me.
You do that
Come on.
on purpose.
Snort again for me.
I'm not, because I'm not going to wet my pants on radio.
Did I tell you the one about the man and the dog and the woman he wanted to take them fishing?
I think you did, but I've forgotten it.
All right.
So,
All right, we're not going to tell it here.
okay, good.
All right.
I don't think you should. There's, eventually you're going to have to make this family friendly.
Okay. Yes. Hey, so like I say when I sign off, what do I say? We're out of time. We got to go. We're desperately out of time.
Yeah, and the whole house shakes when he says it, and it's usually upstairs in his office, and even with the door closed, everybody can hear. Everybody being me and the dogs.
So for Lois Berger Schiavone, who I married 41 years ago, I'm Tony Schiavone.
And I'm Lois Schiavone.
Saying,
What? Saying have a good night, everybody?
we're desperately out of time.
Oh, we're desperately out of time,
Say it
and I
like
got to pee. Now, you want me to say something else? We're